Nat, I'm delighted that I'm not the only person who told you were wrong. You have students telling you that as well. And I also think that one of the sins, clearly, that we're going to see more people talking about in the future is the sin of escalated conflict. And I have my own take on that. As my friends know, I have a kind of Zen approach to conflict. I believe that before you have a conflict with anyone, you should first walk a mile in their shoes. And that way, when you have the conflict, you'll be a mile away. And you'll have their shoes. So obviously I like to think a little differently than the average bear. And that's why I'm absolutely convinced that the world is not flat. And I really do think that that is backward thinking and kind of dangerous, because it takes us from, it takes us back to a concept that the world is on two planes, where we're already on three, which is multidimensional, and we are heading, more importantly, to where we will be, which is extra-dimensional. If the world were flat, then it wouldn't just be about goods and services moving around the world without barriers seamlessly. It would also mean that best practices would also be adopted as quickly around the globe. Without crises, they are not. There are still significant obstacles to water management, protection and care of women and children, the elderly and the sick, carbon sequestration and reduction, access to excellent education, good employment, and so on. You have all of that in your pre-brochure. So I'm going to explain to you what I'm talking about here. First of all, there are significant obstacles to the seamless spread of best practices, and if the world were flat, these obstacles would not any longer exist. There are many more than I'm going to cite, but I'm going to give you a number of them just for the sake of brevity and to make it very clear that the world is not flat. First of all, there are political barriers, and they are significant, and they include corruption. And one of the things that has always disturbed me is that you can go back a long way and take a look at people who've been coming to these meetings back from 1972 or 73, when we were talking about small, appropriate technology that would work, where there were communities that were not part of the infrastructure, where people were poor, technologies for water management, technologies for energy. They existed and they have existed for decades. But small technology is not as lucrative for a lot of people as large technology is. And if the world were flat, we would have used these things a long time ago, but we haven't. The lack of long-term will on the part of politicians. They're very short-sighted. The existence of special influences that corrupt what could be a flat world. And self-interest, which is no small culprit in this. Someone once said, some years ago to me, he said, Edie, you can look at whatever you want to about the future that makes sense. And you can just lay it all out and understand it. But then take one more acetate and lay it over all of that and call that acetate self-interest. And that acetate will change the outcomes of everything that you think makes sense in terms of what you see. And self-interest is another reason why we don't see the flatness of the world in so many other areas outside of just goods, services, and information. The second area of boundary to a seamless and flat world is academic. The world is not unidisciplinary, but we still, for the most part, have institutions that teach that way. And even though there are experiments, and even though those walls are breaking down, they're not breaking down fast enough. They should have broken down 30 years ago. So we still have a lot of catching up to do. But the world doesn't work the way the academic universities declare that it does.